صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
Sahih Bukhari, the book of Al-Luqatah, a well-tied pouch or purse or lost things picked up by somebody. Chapter on when the owner of the Luqatah informs its description exactly, proves that it belongs to him, it should be returned to him. Narrated Ubay bin Ka'b, may Allah be pleased with him. I found a purse containing 100 dinar. So I went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and informed him about it. He said, "Make public announcement about it for 1 year." I did so, but nobody turned up to claim it. So I again went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, who said, "Make public announcement for another year." I did, but none turned up to claim it. I went to him for the third time, and he said, "Keep the container and the string which is used for its tying, and count the money it contains. And if its owner comes, give it to him. Otherwise, utilize it." The sub-narrator, Salama, said, "I met him, Suwaid, another sub-narrator, in Mecca, and he said, I don't know whether Ubay made the announcement for 3 years or just 1 year." Chapter on lost camels. Narrated Zayd bin Khalid al-Juhni, may Allah be pleased with him. A Bedouin went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and asked him about picking up a lost thing. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Make public announcement about it for 1 year. Remember the description of its container and the string with which it is tied, and if somebody comes and claims it and describes it correctly, give it to him. Otherwise, utilize it." He said, "O Allah's Messenger, what about a lost sheep?" The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "It is for you, for your brother, that is, its owner, or for the wolf." He further asked, "What about a lost camel?" On that, the face of the Prophet, peace be upon him, became red with anger, and he said, "You have nothing to do with it, as it has its feet, its water reserve, and can reach places of water and drink, and eat trees." Chapter on lost sheep. Narrated Yahya, Yazid bin Mawla al-Munba'ith heard Zayd bin Khalid al-Juhni, may Allah be pleased with him, saying, the Prophet, peace be upon him, was asked about Luqatah. He said, "Remember the description of its container and the string it is tied with, and announce it publicly for 1 year." Yazid added, "If nobody claims, then the person who has found it can spend it, and it is regarded as a trust entrusted to him." Yahya said, "I do not know whether the last sentence were said by the Prophet, peace be upon him, or by Yazid." Zayd further said, "The Prophet, peace be upon him, was asked, 'What about a lost sheep?' The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, 'Take it, for it is for you or your brother, that is, its owner, or for the wolf." Yazid added that it should also be announced publicly. The man then asked the Prophet, peace be upon him, about a lost camel. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Leave it, as it has its feet, water container, reservoir, and it will reach a place of water and eat trees till its owner finds it." Chapter on if the owner of a lost thing is not found for 1 year, then the thing is for the one who has found it. Narrated Zayd bin Khalid, may Allah be pleased with him. A man came and asked Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, about picking a lost thing. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Remember the description of its container and the string it is tied with, and make public announcement about it for 1 year. If the owner shows up, give it to him. Otherwise, do whatever you like with it." He then asked, "What about a lost sheep?" The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "It is for you, for your brother, that is, its owner, or for the wolf." He further asked, "What about lost camel?" The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "It is none of your concern. It has its water container, reservoir, and its feet. and it will reach water and drink it, and eat the trees till its owner finds it. Chapter on if someone finds a piece of wood, or a lash, or similar things in the sea. Narrated Abdul Rahman bin Hurmuz. Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, said, Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, mentioned an Israeli man. Abu Hurairah then told the whole narration. At the end of the narration, it was mentioned that the creditor went out to the sea, hoping that a boat might have brought his money. Suddenly, he saw a piece of wood, and he took it to his house to use as firewood. When he sawed it, he found his money and a letter in it. See Hadith number 2291 for details. Chapter on if somebody finds a date on the way. Narrated Anas, may Allah be pleased with him. The Prophet, peace be upon him, passed by a date fallen on the way and said, Were I not afraid that it may be from a sadaqah, charity, I would have eaten it. Narrated Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Sometimes when I return home and find a date fallen on my bed, I pick it up in order to eat it, but I fear that it might be from a sadaqah, charity, so I throw it. Chapter on how the Luqatah at Mecca is to be announced. Narrated Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with them. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Nobody should pick up the Luqatah, lost things of Mecca, except the one who makes public announcement for it. Ibn Abbas said in another narration, The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, None should pick up the fallen things of Mecca, except that who announces it publicly. Narrated Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with them. Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, also said, that is, Mecca's thorny bushes should not be uprooted, and its game should not be chased, and picking up its fallen things is illegal, except by him who makes public announcement about it, and its grass should not be cut. Abbas said, O Allah's Messenger, except idkhir, a kind of grass. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, except idkhir. Narrated Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him. When Allah gave victory to His Messenger, peace be upon him, over the people of Mecca, Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, stood up among the people and, after glorifying Allah, said, Allah has prohibited fighting in Mecca and has given authority to His Messenger and the believers over it. So fighting was illegal for anyone before me and was made legal for me for a part of a day. And it will not be legal for anyone after me. Its game should not be chased. Its thorny bushes should not be uprooted. And picking up its fallen things is not allowed except for one who makes public announcement for it. And he whose relative is murdered has the option either to accept a compensation for it or to retaliate. Al-Abbas said, except al-Idkhil, for we use it in our graves and houses. Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, said, except al-Idkhil. Abu Shah, a Yemenite, stood up and said, O Allah's Messenger, get it written for me. Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, said, write it for Abu Shah. The sub-narrator asked Al-Awza'i, what did he mean by saying, get it written, O Allah's Messenger? He replied, the speech which he had heard from Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him. Chapter on no animal may be milked without the permission of its owner. Narrated Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with them. Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, said, an animal should not be milked without the permission of its owner. Does any of you like that somebody comes to his store and breaks his container and takes away his food? The udders of the animals are the stores of their owners, where their provision is kept. So nobody should milk the animals of somebody else without the permission of its owner. Chapter on if the owner of lost property comes back after a year. it should be returned to him as it is a trust with the one who has found it. Narrated Zayd bin Khalid al-Juhni, may Allah be pleased with him. A man asked Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, about the Luqatah. He said, "Make public announcement for it for 1 year. Then remember the description of its container and the string it is tied with. Utilize the money, and if its owner comes back after that, give it to him." The people asked, "O Allah's Messenger, what about a lost sheep?" Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, said, "Take it, for it is for you, for your brother, or for the wolf." The man asked, "O Allah's Messenger, what about a lost camel?" Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, got angry, and his cheeks or face became red, and said, "You have no concern with it, as it has its feet and its water container, till its owner finds it." Chapter on Should One Pick a Fallen Thing, lest it should be spoiled or taken by somebody who does not deserve it. Narrated Suwayd bin Ghafala, while I was in the company of Salman bin Rabi'a and Zayd bin Sahan in one of the holy battles, I found a whip. One of them told me to drop it, but I refused to do so, and said that I would give it to its owner if I found him. Otherwise, I would utilize it. On our return, we performed Hajj, and on passing by Al-Madinah, I asked Ubay bin Ka'b, may Allah be pleased with him, about it. He said, "I found a bag containing 100 dinar in the lifetime of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and took it to the Prophet, peace be upon him, who said to me, 'Make public announcement about it for 1 year.' So I announced it for 1 year, and went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, who said, 'Announce it publicly for another year.' So I announced it for another year. I went to him again, and he said, 'Announce for another year.' So I announced for still another year. I went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, for the 4th time, and he said, 'Remember the amount of money, the description of its container, and the string it is tied with, and if its owner comes, give it to him. Otherwise, utilize it." Salama narrated the above narration from Ubay bin Ka'b, adding, "I met the sub-narrator at Mecca later on, but he did not remember whether Ka'b had announced what he had found for 1 year or 3 years. Chapter on whoever announced the Luqatah in public and did not hand it over to the ruler. Narrated Zayd bin Khalid, may Allah be pleased with him, a Bedouin asked the Prophet, peace be upon him, about the Luqatah. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Make public announcement about it for 1 year. And if then somebody comes and describes the container of the Luqatah and the string it was tied with, give it to him. Otherwise, spend it." He then asked the Prophet, peace be upon him, about a lost camel. The face of the Prophet, peace be upon him, became red, and he said, "You have no concern with it, as it has its water reservoir and feet, and it will reach water and drink and eat trees. Leave it till its owner finds it." He then asked the Prophet, peace be upon him, about a lost sheep. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "It is for you, for your brother, or for the wolf." Chapter on Incident of Milking a Sheep. Narrated Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, while I was on my way, all of a sudden I saw a shepherd driving his sheep. I asked him whose servant he was. He replied that he was the servant of a man from Quraysh. And then he mentioned his name, and I recognized him. I asked, "Do your sheep have some milk?" He replied in the affirmative. I said, "Are you going to milk for me?" He replied in the affirmative. I ordered him, and he tied the legs of one of the sheep. Then I told him to clean the udder, teats, of dust, and to remove dust off his hands. He removed the dust off his hands by clapping his hands. He then milked a little milk. I put the milk for Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, in a pot, and closed its mouth with a piece of cloth and poured water over it till it became cold. I took it to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and said, "Drink, O Allah's Messenger." He drank it till I was pleased.